Hi, everyone. Good afternoon and good morning, depending on where you are. My name is Joy Burwell. I'm the Director of Communications and Membership here at AOPA, and I want to welcome you all to today's Compliance and Ethics Week webinar, Tips for Social Media. Today, we have a real treat. We have Peggy Chenoweth with us to do the presentation. She has been an amputee since 2003. In 2009, she started her blog, Amputee Mommy, as a way to connect to the amputee community. And then in 2010, she started fighting insurance appeals and managing the social media for her prosthetists. Then in 2012, she went to the Amputee Coalition, where she managed their social media profiles and increased their reach by 1,195%. She's now a consultant managing social media profiles for a number of prosthetic facilities across the country, and we are lucky to have her here today to share with us some of the social media compliance and ethics best practices. So with that, Peggy, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Joy. I'm excited to be here. Social media is something that if you're not in the space yet, you should be, but you have to be very cautious going in. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. There's a lot of pitfalls, but there's also a lot of benefits if you do it and if you do it correctly. Um, hang on. There we go. Why do you need a presence? Did you know that 70% of all prosthetic patients research providers on social media before committing to a facility? 86% of caregivers of those providers. So not only do you have 70% of amputees coming in that are researching, but 86% of the people who are either in the household, so we're talking spouses or grandchildren or nieces or aunts, they're looking online. They're looking for the best facility for their loved ones. And 63% of patients actually choose one provider over another based upon their social media presence. If you have patients out there on social media talking you up, if you have a robust social media profiles where you're sharing a lot of information and you're connecting, you'll see it with new patients coming through the door. With 63% choosing one provider over another based on social, and the statistics show us that that's just going to increase as time goes on. So social media works. It's a great way to funnel new patients in and to maintain the patients that you have. But there's a lot of pitfalls as well. Um, Three main pitfalls with social media with prosthetic O&P is HIPAA violations through personal pages. That's staff posting about patients or patient devices, patient victories, patient successes on their own personal profiles. So we will go into that and what you can do to safeguard against those violations. The second one is HIPAA violations through facility posts. That's the facility pushing out personal information about patients without explicit information or permission, and really making sure that everything that you're putting out there is HIPAA compliant. And the third is reputation management. That's what do you do when you have a strong social media profile and you've put a lot of work into building it up, and you have a disgruntled patient who goes on there and starts slamming you online, or disgruntled ex-staff employees who used to be with your facility and are no longer, and then go online and gather up their friends and try to destroy the facility online. It's a risk, it happens, and we'll talk about it. So the very first thing I want to talk about is personal pages, and that is because that is the #1 HIPAA violation among healthcare workers, is going on social media and sharing patient information. These usually occur in O&P through posting photos of where patients are visible and identifiable, posting selfies in waiting rooms, posting selfies in the gate room, posting proud, you have a patient, took their first steps, you're really excited because you worked hard on that device, you snap a picture and you put it up on social media. If you didn't have permission, if the patient didn't say, yes, you can put it on your page, it's a HIPAA violation. Sharing personal information about the patient online is also a HIPAA violation. So best practices for personal pages, and this goes for all clinical staff, whether or not you're work the front desk, or you work in the back, or you work directly with patients. I recommend for the facilities that I work for, don't friend your patients. Instead, encourage the patients to follow the facility networks and the facility channels. If you don't friend the patients, it's a lot easier to avoid some of those pitfalls. The second one is don't comment or share patient posts unless you have the patient's permission to do so. Refrain from sharing the successful fitting on your own personal page. Save those for the facility page. And if you want to, share them off of the facility page onto your page. And know that commenting on or sharing patient posts through a personal page could be a HIPAA violation if you don't have permission to share it. It's one thing for them to put it out. It's another thing for you to put out that personal information. And the number one thing that I recommend for every facility is you have to establish and enforce an employee social media policy. Again, you have to establish a social media policy. Otherwise, the employees don't know what you need. The employees don't know the standards that you're looking for. And this is very clear. You can do it right from the beginning, and that way there's no confusion about what they can and what they should not post about work on their social media profiles. When sharing on social media on personal pages, you need to remember that releases that were signed by patients are traditionally limited to the facility use. When patients sign the media release, they're granting the facility permission to put it out, not the prosthetist. And again, the photo release does not grant the staff consent to share their personal information through networks, just the facility. So I wanted to look at an example. You have a happy patient who went online. You already friended them. It's kind of too late because your prosthetist already did that. So they're connected. The patient was extremely happy. They're finally walking again. There's no stopping them. And the prosthetist chimes in, "You did a great job today." It looks supportive. It looks, "Hey, I'm so proud of you. Good job." The patient didn't identify as a prosthetic patient at your facility or identify you as their prosthetist. Hence, their personal provider information has been exposed through that supportive and relatively benign comment. So that's probably the number one violation that I see as well in my work is prosthetists and other staff commenting without the patient identifying where they go. Device photos, that's another big one. I know that everybody's very proud of what they create, especially if it's something with a unique design. And you want to put it up and show not only your followers, but other people that are in the field that may follow you on social media. Know that if the device boasts a design that's very unique to that patient, in that if the patient could be walking around and be identified as through that device, and you don't have permission to share the device, it's a violation. So I wanted to look. So this is a prosthetist post putting it out there. Check out this awesome leg I made today. And they put up a picture of the leg. It's a cool leg. I can see why they want to share it on their profile, but you have to be careful because can the patient be identified through this device? I would say that's a pretty unique design, and you would be able to identify the patient through that device. That could be a violation if the patient decided to push it. All right, so that's the number one violation is personal pages. So my recommendation is you have to meet with your staff. You have to make sure that everybody is on the same page on what they can and cannot post through social, and that's where the social policy comes into play. Now, when obtaining facility consent for social media posting, always make sure that you have the consent in writing. Make sure that you check that file to make sure that the media release has been signed and that the media release stipulates social media use. A lot of media releases that are being used by facilities are older and predate social media. I would recommend going back and making sure that they cover social media use. Best practice, even if you have the consent signed, I always recommend that you just ask the patient after you take the picture, hey, this is a great picture, or I love this video. Is it okay with you if we share it? Make sure the patient knows that you plan on using their image and their video on your social media pages. Technically, if you have the consent signed and it's stipulated social media, legally you're covered. It's just best practice to clear it with the patient first. That way you don't have an angry patient coming to you after it was published. It's a lot easier to get permission at the front end than trying to clean up an angry patient on the back end. And remember that the release does not include sharing any personal health or financial information. Now, that sounds like a no-brainer, but let's see what that would look like in a second. Sorry. Best practices, again, don't tag patients on social media. If you put out their photo, so you have permission, you put out their photo, just use their first name and don't tag them. When you tag them, it makes an identification on that specific patient and it outs them on social media. So everybody who follows you and because your pages are public, basically anybody on social media is going to be able to click on that tag and go to that individual's private page. We want to be able to respect their anonymity. So don't tag patients. If a patient shares a photo on their profile and tags you, that's a little bit different. I always reach out privately through a message and ask permission to share the photo. Because they tagged you, they've already identified as a patient at your facility, but it's best practice to just make sure that it's okay if you share the image. And again, I'm all about keeping that level of anonymity for patients. So what I do after you have permission from a patient to share the photo that they posted is I download it and then I will create a new post with that image. That way people aren't able, you're on a public network, they can't click on it to see who it was shared from and trace it back. We want to protect the privacy of our patients as much as possible. And that includes not sharing full names. If somebody gives you permission to post a picture of a walking day, just use their first name. You know, Mr. John took his first steps today or something like that. Don't give their first name or their last name. Don't give their full name so that they can be traced. So this is a post that I often see, and I wanted to talk about this kind of post because this is where you are unintentionally giving out health and financial information. And it's a cute picture. Um, I'm a little biased because it's my kiddo, but little Timmy is so eager to get his mom walking again. This would play perfectly on social media. People love this type of posts, except for the second part, which is after 3 surgeries and insurance issues, Peggy is back on 2 feet. The potential issues with this is the caption exceeds the release. You had permission to share the photo. You don't have permission to share that I've had 3 surgeries or that I've had insurance issues and that there are financial things involved. That is still private information. And the release of that photo is HIPAA compliant if all of the releases were signed. The release of that personal information is not. and and I chose this one as well because I can sign the release to release my photo. If you're going to include a patient's child, make sure that you have a release for the parent to share the child's photo as well. Here's another example. And in here, the patient went ahead and tagged the facility. So how do you handle that? Today was a big day. I received my new leg. Thanks, facility. There's no stopping me now. So because the facility was tagged, then the patient is self-identifying, first as a prosthetic patient, second as a prosthetic patient at your facility. You can go ahead and comment. This is a perfect response for a prosthetic facility to interact with a patient through a tag. So this is how I would do it. If you are tagged, comment. If you are not tagged, don't comment on it. And the last issue is reputation management. Don't post negative information or comments about a competitor. And these even include posts as in, Joe struggled with other practices to get a comfortable fit. He came to us and he walked out in 2 hours. That's people will in the area will know who you're talking about. It's best to just stay clear of the past. Don't talk about competitors, don't interact with competitors. Keep yourself up to a different standard and keep going on that route. Don't post gossip about a competitor. Even on your private pages, don't talk about competitors. Don't talk, I can't believe that so and so did this at that practice. What a crummy thing to do. It's on your own personal profile, but it's just best practice to stay away from doing that sort of thing. And what do you do when you have complaints from people on your public profile? Because it's going to happen and it happens all the time. And the more robust that you build up your social media profiles, the more of this type of interaction you're going to see as well, because you have disgruntled patients, you have confused patients, and you have disgruntled employees and their friends and family that they kind of gather behind their cause, which is to bring you down, right? So they will go in the different amputee groups, they will go on your own page, they will go on Google My Business, and they'll leave bad reviews. Best thing to do in that case is to always reply publicly, but respond privately. And what does that mean? So here you go. You have a disgruntled patient. This facility is the worst. I went to them trusting that they would help me. Instead, the staff was rude and they refused to give me the leg that I want. Stay away. This patient's pretty angry and they tagged you, so it's out there. People know who they're talking about here. Um, how I would respond publicly is, we're sorry we didn't meet your expectations. We're looking forward to discussing your experience. Please call us at your earliest convenience. Put that directly on that post. Comment publicly with that information, because that lets everybody else who's going to see that post know that you're listening and that you want to work it out, that you recognize that the patient isn't happy. Even if you know that you did nothing wrong, you cannot leave a negative review out there unattended. Um, Now, if this is on regular social media, obviously the patient can go and delete that response. And if that's the case, you could, first of all, respond again and just keep commenting until they let it up, or you can just know in good faith that you did your best and move on. Um, on other platforms, they can't remove comments. If they do it on Twitter, they can't remove it. If they do it on Google My Business, which is where I tend to see the most of this type of posts, because people figure that they can hurt you the most through Google. Uh, Comment publicly. Always comment on your reviews, especially if it's a negative review, um, publicly, to let people who are looking for a new prosthetic facility know that you're listening. And this reads as an angry post. So this, although it can be upsetting if you start to see this type of post, if you were a patient or the general community is used to a certain number of negative posts per profile, especially if they get bigger, when you're looking for a new provider for anything, you're always going to see those 1-star reviews. And if you read them, it's usually just somebody blowing off steam and hot air, and that's how they're perceived as well. So although it can feel upsetting, it's not going to be nearly as damaging as what you fear that it may be. And a lot of people don't know that if you have ex-employees or competitors posting on your Google My Business profiles and your Yelp profiles, and you can prove that they are ex-employees or that they are competitors, Google will take down those negative reviews and you will get your star rating back. So that's something to keep in mind if you start seeing ex-employees coming in and trying to smash you on Google. You can go through the process through Google My Business and get those reviews removed. And it also takes away their account, which is a nice little bonus. So the takeaways are, patients are relying on social media and O&P. It's here to stay. It's not going anywhere, and it's only going to get bigger, which means that the pitfalls are only going to be coming deeper. As you start using social media with your facility, remember with every single thing that you do, every keyboard stroke that you do, that maintaining patient confidentiality is the most important thing when posting on social media. Make sure before every post, do I have permission to post this? Am I posting any identifiers where this person could be tracked down and harassed? Am I posting any personal information? Am I referencing surgeries? Am I referencing previous fittings? Am I referencing financial issues? Am I referencing injuries? Any of that information, omit from the post. Just stick to what is in the image and what's going on in that moment. Stick to, John is happy to be back up on 2 feet. You don't have to go into he hasn't been walking in 3 months because he had a sore and he had surgery. You don't have to go into all of that. If John sees his post and he wants to add to it, then that's John taking responsibility, and that's not your violation. That's John putting out his own personal information on your post. Another big takeaway, and I hope that if you learn anything in this webinar, it's that you have to have a social media policy for employees. Employees need to be trained on how to interact with patients on social media, what they can put out on social media about patients, what they can put out about the work that they're doing and the devices that they're building, and what they should not be putting out on social media. Most of the prosthetists that I see violating the HIPAA rules on their private profiles did it because they honestly didn't know. They didn't realize that they couldn't put out the picture of them with the patient smiling, holding the new leg. They didn't realize that they can't post the very intricate, easily identifiable device on social media without patient permission. Letting the employees know ahead of time, making sure everybody is trained in it, and understanding the pitfalls and what they can and cannot do and why will really avoid a lot of the issues that can happen and arise on the other end. And when you have negative things happen on social media, which is going to happen, always reply publicly, but respond privately. Reply on the post. We'd love to talk to you about it. Please call us at your earliest convenience. We're ready to help work this out. And then when they call, if they call, then you can deal with the issues. And you can say, I didn't give you the leg that you wanted because your insurance doesn't cover it. And you can go into the details with them privately. And a lot of times when you take the time to do that, the patient will actually go back and either remove the post after it's worked out, or they'll create a new one saying, I was angry, I talked to them, all's good now, these are great people. So those are my takeaways. Social media, it's a lot of fun. It's a great way to get your facility name out there and to highlight all of the great work that you're doing and the lives that are being changed. It's being seen, it's being used when making decisions about care, but you need to be careful to avoid the pitfalls. So that's all that I have. If anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Peggy. That was really helpful information and presented in a very succinct, easy to follow fashion. I, as someone who manages AOPA's social media, certainly appreciated the information you provided today. So we have a few minutes in case anybody has any questions for Peggy. You can pop those into the questions panel and we will get to them. So again, if you have any questions, go ahead and pop those in. We'll give it a minute and see if anything comes up. But I'm guessing people probably don't have questions because it was a very thorough, straightforward, good presentation. And I think I don't know, Peggy, if you agree, but I think social media has become definitely a bigger tool during the pandemic.
Absolutely, 100%.
And I've certainly appreciated that. And I think I see it from AOPA's members as well. Oh, here's a question. What is good practice about clinicians and facilities commenting, participating on social media amputee support pages?
That's a really good question. I have no problem with it. You can do it and remain compliant. The biggest issue there that I tend to see is facilities or other prosthetists going in and bashing the competitors. So that's where you have to, you know, walk that tightrope, so to speak. If you go into a local virtual support group online and you see somebody, a patient saying, I can't believe I can't get a fit, this facility isn't helping me, I don't know what to do. The facility that you work at, you can't comment, come to me, I'll make it better for you. That's just poaching from another facility. It's really bad practice. I tend to keep the facility interactions in groups and different amputee pages always positive and supportive, which actually will get you more play in the long run. So if you see a patient from even another facility who took their first steps and they put it up on the local support group page, comment, say, that's fantastic, well done, done. That's all you need to say. Somebody else, a new patient, may see that, may click on your name, follow through, and learn about you. The worst case that happens is the patient had somebody cheer them on. You're not saying anything negative about the competition. You're not saying anything, negative about the prosthetist that they were working at. You're not trying to get them to come to you. You're simply saying, great job, I'm proud of you, well done. Does that answer that?
It does. That person said they agreed and thank you.
I'm not seeing the chat. Are you?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah,
That's
it's
okay.
only on the organizer then, so
All right.
you're not supposed to. All right, well,
It's
I'm not seeing any other questions, so I want to thank Peggy again for being here with us today. And everybody will get a recording of this so they can share it with others, as well as the slides. And I hope everyone, I'm reminded we have one more webinar this week. It's tips for accreditation tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern time. And again, thank you, Peggy, so much. And thank you, everyone else, for being here with us today.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Bye, everyone.